All right, and it looks like we're live. Let me get this set up. That happened faster than I was expecting, honestly. Good to see y'all here. It looks like, how many people do we have here? Maybe like 20 of you. Okay, not bad for being gone for months on end. And I apologize. I've been doing this thing called like living your life. And unfortunately, the YouTube content has fallen by the wayside, but there's more coming. Don't worry about that. Let's take a minute. Let's see who's tuned in here, and I'll give you a recap on what's going on with me, how I can help you. We'll talk about questions. I got a tool du jour. It's sitting right there. We're going to get into it. Okay, so starting off, who do we got? We got the True Serum. Nice. Been a while for all of you. Southern Rebel. Let's see. Big Rolling Home. Nice. These are all familiar names. Down here we got the Painted Buffalo. What's up, Jess? Good to see you here. Tuning in from the Into the Wild bus. Oh, that is awesome. I cannot wait to see that bus. How are things going there? I want to see some pictures. Shoot me some. That's a cool bus. She's asking, when are you coming over? You know, I'd love to get down there. Most of my life activities happen out here in the West. As they call it. However, I would love to get down there and see what's going on and collaborate on something. I don't know. You know, we could just hang out, talk about buses, work on buses. What more is there to life? Let's see. We got people tuning in from Indiana and Alabama, Kansas. Big Midwest vibes tonight. Wondering if we'll get any international joiners in. Justice W, they just did their floating subfloor and it turned out beautifully. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Super glad to hear it. What else do we got? We got Brenton. Hey, man, been a while. Of course, I'm acting like I haven't seen you. I'm the one that hasn't done anything. And we got all kinds of tuners in here. Colorado, Rodney, what's up? Home state, that's where I am now. Michigan, okay, Canadian. Now we're international, so now we can finally get serious here. What else do we got here? The Great Divide, nice. Kansas, Florida. This is cool. Looks like people have been watching my social media because they're asking about a boat build. This is great. So that's a perfect segue. Thank you for the setup. What have I been doing lately? I've been hanging out in the Bay Area a bunch where I've got some friends, some very important people to me. And there is a sailboat in my life, and it's half owned by me and my good friend Reese. And so I've been spending time, learning to sailor, getting to know the ropes as a sailor. I have to say, I really like it. All of the things that I love about bus life are kind of like times 10 out in the boat world. You've got simple diesel engines, a lot of self-reliance, you're off-grid, you can sail anywhere in the world, and of course, the sailing world is a whole world. I mean, I've been interested in it for almost the last 2 or 3 years, and I feel like I'm just now to the point where I could call myself a very beginner, very novice sailor. And this is after, had many, many days on boats now. But, I'm from Colorado. I didn't even see the ocean for the first time until I was 15, and I was trying to recall the other day when the first time was that I actually got in it, and I think I was probably pushing 20, which is kind of wild when you think about it. But I love boats, and the boat that I am now part owner of is a 60-year-old sailboat that's 34 feet long. It's had a book written about it. It's raced to Hawaii twice. It's a really just special boat, and buying the boat was not expensive at all. I'll say that. I mean, less than $2,000. But boats, they just eat money. In a way that's not unlike buses. If you're driving your bus, it's on par, I would say. But I'm loving it. Boats are cool. You're probably going to see some boat content from me one day, but not until I'm done in the skoolie world helping everyone. Let's just tune in, with the group and see what's happening here. This is great. Okay, people are blocking out their windows. Nice. We got Lebanon, Kentucky. Bet you know a bowline knot. I do. Yeah, learning knots is definitely a part of the boating world. Pretty fun one, actually. Tying knots and learning them has become a bit of like a Zen practice for me. Very cool. Knots are cool. Uh, we got people from Texas and Washington. This is great. Okay, cool. So let's see. What do we got? If you got some questions, please throw them in the chat. Send them my way. And in lieu of that, and while we get things going, I'll tell you about what's coming up. So I'm getting back on the horse. I know I said this last time, so whatever. Don't believe me this time. But I've got some videos in the works. I'm really digging into the solar stuff. Going to be explaining and showing you how to do solar installations, how to size things, just how to understand electricity in your bus. And, you know, I've learned a bunch actually hanging out in the boat world about different approaches to off-grid electricity. And being on a boat is a little more high stakes. And so there's different things there, and it's informing how I design my solar systems for people in a bus life. And that's good for you if you're one of the people that, you know, schedules a call with me or decides to buy your gear from me, because I'll keep all these new things in mind as we design your system. And that's something I really love doing. And I'll just tell you now, the prices that you can buy stuff from me, I'll beat whatever you can see on Amazon or anywhere else. And I cover the shipping and sales tax. So this is how you can help me. It's how I get by. And I really like helping folks on the electrical side of things, because I think it's somewhere where it's overwhelming, truly, to try to figure out what you need. It's not so hard to understand what's going on, but to understand what's going on enough to the point where you can build and design and spec out a system that's going to work for you without wasting money or time buying the wrong things. It takes a lot of time to get to that point, you know, and I still, even though I'm very well versed in all of this, I'm still reading about new products and materials and approaches as they come about. So I love sharing that knowledge with people. And that's one awesome way for you to benefit from me, is have me help you design your electrical system. And if you buy the stuff from me, that helps support me, takes care of you. It's all good. I digress. You can book those, you know, consultations with me down. There's links in the description. You know, this is YouTube still. Let's see if we got any questions back here in the zone. Oh, we got some cool stuff happening here. People turning, what do we got here? Okay, so we got a full in-frame on a bus. That's exciting. Wow, that's a big job too. You drove 1,000 miles home after storing it for 5 years. 7-speed manual transmission, DT466. Dang, that is a sweet rig. Did you have any issues, you know, after it sat for so long? My take has always been, you know, people are asking all the time, and we're coming up on winter where people will be putting their buses to sleep, so to speak. You know, what do you do if you're leaving a bus to sit for a while? And a lot of people, you know, I think this is like wisdom passed down from fathers decades ago, and it's still in our minds, but like starting the bus up and just letting it idle and sit there over the winter, you know, periodically every couple weeks, probably the worst thing you could do for your bus. If you can't start the bus and drive it and put that diesel engine under load and get it up to operating temperature, you're really doing more harm than good. Diesel engines do not like idling. They do not like operating when they're not up to temperature, so you got to start them and really as quickly as you can start loading them up, get, you know, pulling the bus around, driving somewhere, giving it work to do to get it up to operating temperature. Otherwise, you're doing a bunch of cold starts where most of the wear on the engine happens before the oil starts circulating. You're doing all these cold starts, you're never getting up to temperature, and your engine's gonna hate you for that. So if you're leaving it for periods of time, you know, the best advice is top up all the fluids, fill up the diesel tank, disconnect the batteries, and just let her sit. You know, you can, if you want, take the batteries out and put them on a battery tender. But if you're leaving it for months, you know, over winter or whatever, I would just do that and not worry about it. You're not going to get flat spots on the tires. None of that's going to happen. Just let her chill. She'll thank you for it the next spring when you wake her up and she says, "Oh, thanks for letting me get a deep sleep and not waking me up in the middle of my REM cycles with low oil pressure, grunting to life in a cold start, just chugging and having an awful wake up." Really don't do that. So thanks for the inspiration on that little topic. Maybe I should make a full video on it, you know. But that's a sweet bus. That's a bus I would be jealous of. I'm curious how long that bus is. Because if it's like 32 feet with a 7-speed manual and a DT 466, now we're talking, you know? Matthew's Outdoor Adventures, insulating my bus soon, going spray foam route. Best way to insulate floors without compromising too much roof height, not doing a roof raise. That's a good question, excuse me. You know, no matter what you do, you're gonna have cold floors in the wintertime. It's like super unavoidable. I've got 4 inches in my bus. I still have cold floors. Now they're not that cold, okay? It's like super bearable, but it's obvious that they're a cold spot. If you're short on headroom, a lot of people, there's two approaches that people get excited about. One is doing very, very minimal insulation in the subfloor, okay? Or just a very thin layer of like Reflectix or something. And the other one that people get excited about is spray foaming underneath the bus, you know, underneath the steel. Starting with the spray foam, like that's not a bad idea. But what's unfortunate is once we have, you know, a lot of these buses are 10, 15, 20, 30 years old, the spray foam is not going to get a good adhesion to anything that's oily or dirty or flaking. And unfortunately, that is the primary, those are the surfaces you're going to find underneath an old bus. You put the spray foam underneath it on that surface and it'll peel back slightly. And then that creates a cavity that moisture will get into. And for a time, you will have great insulation, no doubt. But not long after that, you're going to start having a rust problem under there if you're driving it in wet conditions. So that's a huge, to me, that's like a no-go. Rust in my world is something to avoid and prevent whenever you can and deal with up front. The other problem of doing that is you still, you know, you can insulate under your floor. Well, the floor pan on most buses is metal. And that metal's connected to all the other metal. And so it's a great thermal bridge to allow cold in or heat out, depending on how you think about it, regardless of what's on the other side. Is it going to negate your spray foam? Definitely not. Definitely not. But it's going to diminish its effectiveness in addition to the rust issues. So not a great option. The other thing you can do is insulate on the inside, right? Well, Reflectix and all those like really thin things that claim to have a high R value. I've got an insulation is a scam video you should check out where it explains how those only work for reflecting certain types of energy that's not relevant in our world when we're talking about a subfloor. And they're all dependent on an air gap. And of course, an air gap takes up space, and that defeats the whole point of going with a very thin insulation. So my all-time favorite, you know, best way you can go is do the foam board under your subfloor on top of the metal pan. Even a 1/2 inch is substantial because it eliminates any thermal bridging that's coming up into your floor. So that first 1/2 inch or 1 inch are going to be great. Now, I talk to people all the time. They watch my video of how I insulated my bus where I put 4 inches of that foam in my floor. And they're like, oh, I'm nervous because I can only get 4 inches in there. Am I going to be okay? And like, of course you're going to be okay. I'm like a bit of a psycho and I park my bus in cold temps, you know, half the year. I really hate having a cold floor, and I did a roof raise, so 4 inches was good for me. Now you could do 2 inches and still get a lot of benefit out of 2 inches in a bus, and I've built many buses for people that had just 2 or 3 inches of insulation in the subfloor, and some of those buses have been lived in down to temperatures well below 0. There's video documentation of it. You're not going to die. So like in boating, in sailboats, as I've learned, everything, of course, is a compromise. And you just have to be educated enough that you can live with the compromises you make. And that's really, I mean, I say this a lot, I guess, on my channel, but like, I have strong opinions about the right and wrong way to do things, no doubt, but that is still bearing in mind that everything is a compromise. A lot of times what I'm suggesting takes more work or more money to do. But in my opinion, that's a compromise that's worth the results. Well, insulation is no different. You know, you've got to compromise between your comfort in extreme temperatures and the amount of head height you have. I'm 6'1". I hate being in a space that I have to live in that I can't stand up in and at least have like an inch over my head so I don't feel that like stress of something. There's enough looming over us all collectively right now. We don't need to be living in a tiny tube with no headroom. So hope that answered your question. I sure talked a bunch. We got some people. Tyrese, good to see you too. Thanks for tuning in. People coming in from Michigan, middle of the mitten. I got you, Johnny Lightning. Jimmy Boats, hey, there you go. If you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. That has been my trying to get past that phase, you know. It's cool. If you've got boating experience, throw it down. I'd love to hear about it. Rob, feel good to see a lot of familiar people in here who I've helped personally, you know, have hired me to help with their systems and things like that. That's really cool. Jeff Brecky, I'm sorry if I don't know how to say it, wiring up the system you got for me. I hope it's going well. If not, please reach out. You know, if you buy it from me, I'm definitely going to give you time of day and customer service if you have any issues or questions. True Serum, cool multidisciplinary approach. Insight is a good thing. Yeah, I am a very multidisciplinary person. Much to my own chagrin, actually, I was pondering the other day. Sometimes I get spread a little far and thin, you know? Brenton, you're getting tired of welding, doing rust repairs. Yeah. Found some stuff hiding. Oh, man. Yeah, you're finding stuff in the mirrors and windows. I'm telling you, rust, and I bet Brenton would agree with me, like, you can't find all the rust, of course, when you buy a bus. You just can't see everything. But if you've ever found yourself in position where you own a bus that's rusty and then you endeavor to begin repairing that rust, if you're anything like me, there will be some cursing and frustrations, and you'll quickly, if there's enough repairs, and it doesn't take a lot, you'll realize, you'll have this thought of like, man, this isn't worth my time. It's a demoralizing thought, but hopefully the repairs aren't, you know, too crazy and you can get through it. But, you know, rust is a difficult thing. And really, if you want a good build, you have to take care of the rust before you do anything else. Otherwise, that's what will literally kill your bus. That's the shelf life. Like, if you can maintain a rust-free, watertight shell, which is pretty easy to do with a metal structure like the bus if you are diligent, the bus itself and the interior can easily last 30, 40, 50 years. It could be useful far after its time on the road. And, you know, I'm always encouraging people as they do their builds, you know, you're probably not going to own this bus forever. Seldom of us ever do. And so as you're making these decisions, think about your return when you do sell the bus. Can you sell someone a product, a bus that they're going to feel good about and want to pay good money for? Because you're putting good money in, you know. So saving $1,000 here in the beginning of the build, not doing something the best way or the right way or the most leak-proof way, could cost you thousands down the road when you go to sell it, and you probably will sell it. You know, I've sold every bus I've ever had except for the one I have now. So, just a thought there, just a thought. I'm not rust shaming, okay? Because I own one of my favorite vehicles of all time, full of rust. Absolutely full of rust. I'm just saying, look out for it, you know. What else do we got here? We're cruising right along here. Do you think I can use standard farm and implement paint from the big box stores for painting the bus? From Joshua. Yeah, definitely you can. There's many types of that. You've got your oil-based enamels up to like your acrylics. I've painted probably a dozen buses using Rust-Oleum oil-based enamel paint. And what I learned doing that is that roughing up the surface and surface prep is key. No matter what you do, you know, the best thing to do is sand the entire bus. You know, hit it with like 180 or 220 on a random orbital, and then go over it with these red Scotch-Brite pads. Happen to have them here. Hello, camera. Around the rivets and everything. You can even get these on your sander. Or at the very least, if you can't sand the whole thing, hit it with that, wash it real good. You got to give the paint something to stick to. That is huge. And, you know, you can get good results with the latex paint and things like that. They just don't have like a shell, you know, that the paint forms as it cures the way an enamel or an acrylic enamel does. So my results from painting all those buses with the oil-based enamel, just the Rust-Oleum, is that they do fade out pretty fast. Which may or may not bum you, but you get about 3 or 4 years before the fading really kicks in. and they stick real well. If you have any spots where it goes on too thick, it takes ages to cure and harden up. So I used a product called Japan Dryer and mixed it in with the paint to help it cure and harden faster. And I would really recommend that. Um, you know, you're going to spend a lot of time and energy prepping the bus well. I always recommend, if you can, doing a epoxy primer, but you dilute it to just a sealer rate. Okay, you're not trying to build a layer. You're just trying to get a nice even coat and seal in all the metal in something that's really durable, and epoxy is the best for that. If you do that and then go over it with a less expensive paint, you're going to get really good results. I mean, the primer really does the magic, and that's what I did on my bus. I've got a video of how I painted my bus. I really recommend those epoxy primers. And then I think, you know, as far as the paint goes, you can do the oil-based enamels. I think an acrylic paint would be better, probably. I know that's what I've used on my bus and another bus, and it didn't seem to fade as much, but it was more expensive. So up to you. But I mean, we've all got our standards of aesthetic, how nice things to be aesthetically pleasing. So you'll do you. Let's see, Tyrese is asking, should I pull out the floor before doing the roof raise? I like to leave it in while you're doing the roof raise so that you're banging around and thrashing that and not your floor pan, but it doesn't matter too much. Did you add more bracing to the front hat channel arch to make the slope to the second arch? I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, but if you've got, imagine this front hoop here, and then the raise starts, you've got the back hoop, and it's a slope up to it. I did add bracing across there, absolutely. You want to maintain this, the front of your bus, in as vertical, you know, and correct position as you can. And since there's a slope there, and you're going to probably break up this roof section into 3 pieces, it's nice to also have some structural steel for you to rivet those pieces into. Boy, we're swapping filters. You got cracked sleeves. Holy moly! Pulled the rod bearings, and they're in okay shape, man. Yeah, I just did an engine swap, a DT466 engine swap into a bus, and I will say, granted, it was swapping a used motor in, but like that was a very easy process, very straightforward, and doesn't require the same amount of precision that doing an in-frame does. So yes, the in-frame rebuild is cool because you can rebuild the whole engine of your bus without taking it out. That's amazing. But you will be doing a lot of precision work in the engine, you know, on top of the block, and that's challenging. And the cylinder head, which sits on the top of the engine, that weight, I mean, on my bus, or on the DT466, I think it's like 300 to 500 pounds. And figuring out a way to lift that up and out, and then you definitely want to send that off and get it machined and, you know, get a valve job, do the top end on it, really, if you can. You're still going to have to deal with a lot of the trouble, you know, and pulling off the exhaust manifold, whatever. I would say it's less work to swap in a used engine than do an in-frame. Now, you're starting with a used engine, and that's different because if you do an in-frame rebuild, in theory, you basically have a new engine. So, trade-offs there, but I was and have been, and I guess still am, a big proponent of an engine you can do an in-frame rebuild on. But now, after having done engine swap on a bus engine size engine, boy, you know, if the engine went out in my bus, knock on wood, it would be difficult for me to justify doing an in-frame versus swapping it with like a low mileage running engine, you know, cost, whatever. It's tricky. What else do we got? Chuck Daddy. What's up, Matt? Where did this nickname just keeps on? It's like spreading like wildfire across circles of people that I did not believe to be connected. So there must be something to it. Truth Serum. What do we got? Wiring diagrams from my Bluebird. I know you do complete wire tear-outs, but I don't have any videos to guide me. Yeah, you know, I do need to. My hesitation around making videos around that is just every bus is different. So if I'm showing you how to gut the wiring on a 2007 International, that's going to be totally different than a 2000 Bluebird, and even a 1994 Bluebird could be totally different than a 2014 Bluebird. So part of me feels like it's a waste of time to make that kind of video, because it seems like it could get a lot of people into trouble, but maybe it would still be informative and edifying. There's just no way I'm going to make a video about how to remove or detox the original bus wiring from every bus and remove all of the interlocks. But I suppose I could make one where I showed how to do it on a bus and then talk about some good rules of thumb. Like, that might be useful. Because I know it's daunting. Boy, I just rescued someone, you know, she has a bus up here in northern Colorado, and she got in there and cut everything out, got really excited, and then was in way over her head. And unfortunately, because she had removed so much, it took me quite a bit longer than it would normally take me if I was starting with everything intact, because I had to trace down essentially where every wire in her dash went. And I mean, we're talking 7,942 wires, you know. So it took me, I think, 9 hours, maybe 10 hours to get rid of all the circuits and then put her dash back together so that she had wipers and tail lights and a heater and defrost and all this stuff still. Oh, it's daunting, you know. Here's a question. Oh, dang, that's a 28-footer 8-window with the frickin' manual DT466. Boy, howdy, you got me going. That's a good one. You know what? I will take my first sip of this Pacifico. Cheers to you, my brother. That's a bus. Man, I wish I had that bus. Anyway, okay, back in here. Focus. Do you know if I could swap the 60-gallon tank in between the center for a 100-gallon tank without major issues? Boy, I have no idea. You'd have to get in there and measure around. I'll say this. When you're driving on the highway, you see semis. They have those big saddle tanks. Excuse me, just a big aluminum cylinder hanging off of each side. In a school buses have different regulations, and so you've got the tank, and then there's a whole big cage around it. And if you go look at your tank, if it's not between the frame rails, if it's on either side, you'll notice it's got a huge cage around it. As soon as your bus is no longer a school bus, you don't have to keep that cage. And diesel fuel, as far as like flammable, you know, fuels go in motor vehicles, is a pretty chill one. It's difficult. It's very difficult to light on fire. It doesn't explode the way gas does because of the difference in the temperatures at which they, I believe, vaporize. I don't know. Don't quote me on that one. Nonetheless, if you got rid of a 60-gallon tank that had this whole cage around it, in theory, you could fit a bigger tank that didn't require a cage. And once your bus is an RV, it doesn't require that cage. And between you and me, I am more than fine not having an additionally reinforced diesel tank on my bus. It does not worry me in the slightest. So you could look into getting a used, you know, semi-tank or something like that and finding a different place to do it. The center-mounted fuel tanks are really cool. It's an awesome place for a fuel tank, but finding one that'll fit up there, unless you already have, is going to be difficult. And if you're going 60, man, I would consider seeing if you could go 100. And my reason is that when you're driving these buses long distances, okay, and I say this as someone who drives between my home in Denver and the West Coast. I've done that drive a bunch in the last couple of years, a whole lot. And diesel here in Denver right now is like $3.60 or something a gallon. And once you get to the West Coast, it's $5.60 or something. And somewhere around Nevada, you know, that zone, it changes over. So if you're able to buy 100 gallons here, you know, and get all the way to the coast versus, you know, getting halfway and then having to buy 50 gallons of diesel that are all maybe $1 or let's say $2 more expensive than they were back at home, it's easy for me to justify spending money on upgrading the size of my fuel tank because it pays for itself really fast. And then that gives you a few other added benefits. Sure. Your cruising range will be extended which is super tight. You know, a 100-gallon tank being able to go maybe 1,000 miles. That's amazing on a tank. I put a 150-gallon tank on a bus once for waste vegetable oil conversion, and that was crazy. I mean, we drove so, you know, that's so nice, and that paid for itself very quick because that was free oil. But anyway, where was I? I don't know. We were talking about fuel tanks. I would love to go bigger on my own bus. I've got a tank in there that's 60 gallons, but it really shuts off at like 45 unless you hold the thing in there just right, whatever. I really want to go to a bigger tank. I think it's a worthwhile upgrade. It's like low on the list of priorities, I would say, but if it's something you want to do, I think it pays for itself really fast, and you'll enjoy doing that. So take it on. Check out some heavy-duty truck salvage yards. It's the best place to find a tank, and I would recommend, if you can, find an aluminum tank. Older tanks, I mean, rust happens. You know, back on the rust thing. Rust is going to happen. An aluminum tank is really nice because it's not going to rust on you. You know, when I bought that 150-gallon tank, I think I paid like $300 for it. But that was back in 2012. So it's probably $1 million now, but not too bad. Not too bad. Woo, we're cruising. Now we got questions coming in. And by the way, I'm cutting it off hard at 8:30. Hard 8:30 cut off here. So we got about a half hour left. I'm glad that we have people tuning in, though. That's good. What else? Okay, so what type of flooring? Michael Owens, what type of flooring would you recommend? Something that will wear well and animal friendly but will last. Well, my favorite type of flooring right now is called marmoleum. It's a roll type flooring. It's an all-natural flooring that's no VOC, antimicrobial. The rolls are about 7 feet wide, maybe a little more than that. So you can roll it down the side of your bus. It'll pretty much cover the whole floor. It's waterproof. Depending on the color you get, of course, it'll show scratches differently. But I put that in my bus and I love it. Current new favorite floor. But there's a lot of good options out there for sure. And whatever flooring you choose, make sure you follow the manufacturer's installation recommendations. If you do a floating floor, you cannot build on top of that floor, okay? If you do a floating floor, you cannot build on top of it. So none of that plank flooring, none of that vinyl stuff, the life-proof, whatever, you cannot build on top of that. I can't stress that enough. You will have issues down the road. It's a guarantee. You have to leave a gap around the floor, around everything, so that it can float and move and do its thing, and really so that your bus can do its thing around it, because your bus is rocking and rolling, you know. If you do a flooring like that, make sure you install it correctly. Okay. Hey Chuck, been a while. How are you doing personally? Any new videos coming in the future? Personally, I'm good. I think, you know, the seasons are turning, and I tuned in just the last couple of days to the beginning of a new transit in my life, a new period. And that was good. It was a welcome realization, because I'd kind of just realized I got to the end of a bunch of, you know, dreams that I wanted to see true, and like they happened. And I think I wasn't aware, and I wasn't celebrating the fact that they'd happened. But intuitively, my body and my deeper knowing was like, dude, we need like a new plan. We need a new purpose. We kind of like did the thing that we were going to do. And I think I just picked up the scent of that new direction yesterday. And, you know, everything in my head's a sailing metaphor these days, but it's like the wind picked up, you know what I mean? And now we're cruising, and the ride is much more comfortable once you have some purpose pushing you forward through the waves that life's dealing you, you know? Oh shit, they gave him a microphone. All right. See, we're talking interlock. We got good questions. Jeez Louise, Glenn Roberts. How happy have you been with 3 inches of spray foam? Now it's been a while. Super happy. I mean, I also had 3 inches of spray foam on my last bus, which I lived in for 5 years in Colorado. And now I've been living in my current bus. I mean, I lived in it the whole time I was in Washington. I was sleeping in it because it didn't have a bathroom or whatever, and it was super comfortable then. And that was like 9 months. And then I've been part-time in that bus since February. So that's like another, you know, 3 or 4 months if we're going to water it down for the part-timedness. And it's performing great. I mean, it is it's a known variable, known quantity in my head. If you get to that 3-inch mark, you're kind of just, you could do whatever you want. It's a cooler in there, you know. And it's super easy to heat and cool. Gosh, you know, it's my favorite setup. I'm biased. I mean, there's ways I could tweak it. Of course I'm full of ways to do something better than the way I last did it, you know. Yeah, what do we got here? Okay, I've seen a lot of thin insulation brands make misleading R value claims. You're telling me, Brenton. They give an R value but don't say that's per inch, but their insulation is like 1/8 inch thick. Yeah, totally. I mean, you got to be careful with the insulation stuff. You really do. You really do. So I'm always like skeptical of these insulations with amazing claims. I really want to try cork on. If anybody's had any experience with cork on, it's like a spray on thing, and they're like, our values don't apply to us because we're different. And I'm like, how is that true? You're still in insulation. There should be like an R value. And I want to know what the deal is, because if it is what they say it is, this is through their own marketing and whatever. It looks like an amazing insulation for this application of insulating a bus or a van. But I couldn't get a straight answer from them when I was emailing them, and I was like, what's the R value? And like, we don't believe in the R value. Like, the R value doesn't apply to this product. We have this other rating. And I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean? Because I'm trying to do side by side. Like, someone's going to have to just insulate a thing with cork on and do a side by side for us to actually know what the hell's going on. So that's weird. It reminds me of the stuff that Havelock does, or like, what was it, Hushmat, where they paint a very flattering picture of themselves, but they don't really have the details to back it up if you ask them for it, you know? And then it's like you're talking to a politician, because you're just not going to get a straight answer trying to sell you something, my man, you know? So whatever. Someone who's done the cork on, or someone who wants to be the sacrificial lamb, tell us how it goes. Painted Buffalo. Jess, what's up? Still waiting for your prayer candles to post to your shop. Oh, man, that's pretty funny. Jess made, I grew up in a Catholic household, so like, you know, these long candles that would have like the Virgin Mary or whatever on them, prayer candles. You didn't know that I grew up religious at all, but like, Jess is always making funny merch for me, and she came up with this idea of a prayer candle that had my mug on the front of it. And, you know, honestly, like, if there is a patron saint of foolishly toiling over old objects to make them into something new and useful again, I would buy that candle. It would be weird if it was my face on it, you know, and I'm not saying I am that patron saint, because I'm not. But I would buy one, you know, and just have it burn it. It's a good vibe. I'm not superstitious, but I am spiritual, you know what I mean? Okay, before there's some good questions rolling in. I got a hard cut at 8:30. The producers do not want me wearing myself out. I'm like a starting pitcher over here. Okay, so, and just before this started, I couldn't remember if I'd already done this. And if I did, I'm sorry if it's a repeat, but also I'm happy to repeat it because I freaking love this little nailer. So this, and it doesn't, whatever, it's Milwaukee, that's not important. There's pneumatic ones, I think DeWalt, everyone's got one now. It is a 23 gauge pneumatic pin nailer, and it shoots the smallest, or I'll shoot one here just so you can take a look at it. When it goes in, it's almost invisible in terms of the hole that it leaves. So I shot that in. You know, that's a pretty tiny hole for a fastener. We got it sticking out this side here. Now, my favorite, you see that there. My favorite application for this is, like, if it's a dark wood, also, it really disappears. If you're gluing small trim objects in place, you know, using a pin nailer to put it in there and maintain alignment and just lock it into place. And then it stays in there, but really once that glue sets or the adhesive you're using sets up, that's what's holding it in place. You know, pin nailer, not the greatest for a long-term, you know, solution for something that, you know, has much mass to it or anything. Really gluing is the best way to go, but this is a great way to set things in place, pin them in something that's easy to hide or doesn't need hiding after you're done. And it's like one of my secret weapons, I guess, because I'm not a good carpenter, you know, but I have to make things that look good. So I'm kind of always like cheating, finding things that work. So here's little sample, proof that it works, I guess. And these pins come in sizes, I think all the way down to like, shoot, I think this one goes down to like 1/2 inch or something, really short, up to I think 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches. It probably says here. What do we got? 1/2 inch to 1 3/8, splitting the diff. And it's really simple. It doesn't have the same lockouts as other nailers do. You just flip that down and then you can shoot. And you're good to go. And you know, like, can you see where I just nailed it? I don't think you can, dude. So I love this thing. I don't remember what this cost new. Honestly, I buy the vast majority of my tools, especially Milwaukee tools, off the old Facebook Marketplace, because I'm sure there's just a whole huge market of people finding their way into owning these tools that want to sell them on the cheap. And I get a ton of brand new Milwaukee stuff for like, you know, 70% of what it would cost new. A little pro tip for you. Maybe it was stolen, I guess. I try to buy stuff that like definitely doesn't feel stolen, but if it was stolen from Home Depot, is that such a bad one? I digress. Okay, that was the tool du jour, everybody. Thank you. This is the 23 gauge pin nailer. This is the Milwaukee M12 version, and there are many other versions out there. Woo, here we go. What else do we got? Okay, so we're in the final moments here. I'm getting parched. It's 8:13. We have until 8:30. It's dry in Colorado. Quite a bit drier than the Bay Area, I've learned. Okay, what's going on here? Oh yeah, Brenton's having existential thoughts about welding. I'm so sorry, but you're not alone, man. You know, we've done this. We've been there. You're questioning life decisions, patching up rust holes on like a piece of shit old school bus. You're like, what? Do you still recommend 24-volt systems? I want to figure out the solar size to boondock without having to hook up to power unless it's really cloudy and snowy. David, definitely. I mean, it's like we want to take a look at your specific situation and see how big your bus is, what you're trying to do, and what your loads are. 90% of the people I talk to, 24-volt is like the best of the compromises, in my opinion. But you know, for some people who are going very big, 48-volt, the disadvantages of 48-volt start to be made up for by other advantages that happen once your system is bigger. And by the similar token, you know, if it's a really small system, 12-volt can be nice because small systems, low power in, low power out, that's a good fit for 12-volt. And it really just scales, you know. You got small, low power on the 12-volt, and then on the 48-volt, you've got big, high power. And buses are really kind of in the middle, you know, unless you're doing crazy stuff, and people do, and that's cool. We can power that too. But yeah, David, you should freaking drop me a line or whatever, and let's hop on the phone and we can get you set up with something sweet. Glenn Roberts, I cry when I see completed and amazing buses with the original windows. I cry too, but like they're complicated tears, my dude, you know, because we all know, I think, that aesthetically speaking, the original bus windows they're impossible to beat. They are the school bus. I mean, like, the school bus is really just a set of windows and chairs going down the road. Basically, you know, a dump truck full of children with windows. And once you start messing with the windows, it's not that school bus anymore. And the windows are, in the world of compromises, the biggest compromise you make in making a school bus is you have to make it full of windows. just like on a coach bus or a charter bus. And there's something amazing about that greenhouse. It's just such a good freaking vibe in there, you know? Man. And I've got ways that you could keep that vibe and have stock looking windows that kick butt. It's just incredibly expensive because they're all custom. So, but anyway, you see a beautiful bus and it's got stock windows. And I'm like, damn, I wish I could be like naive enough to just enjoy this bus and not worry about the way it's leaking into the walls or creating mold. Like, I wish I could just know less and be happier and just enjoy this beautiful build that probably feels just fucking amazing to live in, as long as the walls aren't full of mold, et cetera, et cetera. But like, you know, assuming that it's all working still, nothing feels better probably than that setup. But geez, I mean, in my own life, you know, that's just too much risk. I guess I'm too Virgo rising to like be down with having leaky windows in my bus house. So I go with the RV thing, and I'll admit it totally changes the look of it, you know. It changes what's going on. But it's what lets me sleep at night and not cry, because I know too much, you know. So it's complicated tears. Complicated bus crying tears. How are we doing? 13 minutes to go. Oh, I could ramble for hours. We're good, everyone, if you were worried about it. If you're making a cost-benefit trade-off, make it possible to change things in the future, not relative to rust, because rust never... I totally agree with that. Big rolling home. That is... You're so spot on. That is something I say to people all the time, is like, don't compromise on the things inside your walls, basically. You can redo a cabinet and do all this stuff down the road. It's relatively easy. You know, deleting windows, doing massive changes in your insulation, if you want to change the insulation, I mean, forget about it. You know, that kind of stuff is just, it's insane to do after. To me, it is almost disqualified and not worth it to do after the build is complete, because you essentially will end up rebuilding the whole thing. And at that point, it's like, well, just sell it as it is and start over somewhere else, you know. But that's good advice. That's my advice too. Like, if you can't afford to do something the way that you would really like it done, the way that you think your trade-off of compromises desires, pull from the budget in the future and make it that way now before you pass this stage. Because, you know, once you, like, for a lot of people, it's insulation. Insulation is expensive. And, you know, it's like on a big bus, easy to spend $4,000 or something on spray foam. And some people are like, you know, I could do it with something else for like 2 or 3. And I totally get the temptation. And I'm not saying spray foam is the best. Personally, I think it's the best of all the trade-offs out there. And I've been doing air quality tests. I bought some air quality monitors to frickin' debunk this like VOC bullshit about spray foam. And the results are gonna surprise you. They surprised me, and makes me feel even better with spray foam. But we're all still probably killing ourselves, and it's not for the reason you think when we live inside of an airtight bus. And it's not for the CO or the CO2 emissions either. I just teased that video hard. But spray foam is the way to go. And if you're considering doing something else that's not going to perform as well, that might lead to mold or rot down the road, or make the bus less desirable when you go to resell it, you know, you will regret so badly saving that $1 or $2,000, because you can't change that one. That's a choice you can't go back on. And anybody who's buying that bus, I will just tell you, it's a different world. The people who want a bus that's like spray foam insulated and 4 seasons ready, they have a different budget. It's a different mission too for what they're doing. But that's where you want to be when you're selling your bus, in my opinion. So, is there a soapbox around? Oh, here we go. Yeah, let me shoot. I was up on there we go. I'm up here. Hey, it's up here. Up on my soapbox. We're rambling right through this hour. What else do we got here? I'm gonna have to scan a little bit here, and don't take it personal if I don't read your thing. I'm really stoked, happy that you're here. Lucky, even feeling to know that people are still tuning into me after I disappeared. Have I seen much discrimination from private RV parks? Good question. I have not stayed in a private RV park in my bus yet. I did stay at a state campground, but like they didn't care. They didn't care at all. I did. Everybody in the campground though was stoked on the bus. I'll tell you that. A lot of waves. One kid like gave me this salute, and that was cool. And then his dad came out and yelled at me to slow down. I think because he was jealous that his kid gave me the salute because I was crawling, and this guy looked. He might have been impaired, but he was doing the, aggressive dad moves. I get it, but I can tell. I was a school bus driver, I'm not a reckless bus driver. Oh, I just had to put that out there. I'm trying to decide if I should panel over the emergency exit roof hatches or just leave them as is and hide them under the finished ceiling. Joshua, don't do that. No, those plastic hatches, they degrade because of the UV sunlight exposure and they get brittle and crack and then they leak. Everybody, not just you, Joshua, sorry to single you out. Everybody should just get rid of those, put a patch over it and pretend like nothing was ever there. And don't let it influence how you design where your vent fans and things go. A lot of people are like, well, there was an emergency exit there, but I'm just gonna patch over and put my vent fan there since there's already a hole. And I'm like, hold on. That's not necessarily going to be the best place to put your vent fan in your roof because you've got solar panel stuff to think about. You might have a chimney, like Lord knows what's going on in your roof. You want to optimize that. Just because there was a hole there doesn't mean you got to keep that hole because you're going to patch it over all the way anyways. So free your mind and put the roof vent wherever you want it, honey. That's what you got to do and optimize it so you can get the most amount of solar panels. Get your vents where you need them. Do all that roof stuff. Put a deck on there if you want, if your insurance allows. Do those things. Don't marry your roof hatch locations, my friend. Engine swaps. Was it as cool as mine? No, because it wasn't in Alaska. So, whatever. And no one was living in the bus at the time, so it was a lot more low stakes. More low stakes. Less high stakes? No stakes. No stakes. Okay, 23. What do we got? Do you know if the safety switches on Bluebirds are open or closed on? David, good technical question. I haven't the slightest idea if they are consistent, and it's going to depend, I think, on if it's for the like emergency alarms or an ignition interlock or something else. A lot of times, though, they just do switch to ground. They're just closing the ground side of the circuit. But I've seen them every which way. They just, suss it out. Get your voltmeter. Ball shit. That's funny. We just sat with meter, marker, and tape checked everywhere. Oh, meter, marker, and nice. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you understand the basics of electricity and electrical wiring, you can brute force your way through the removal of all of that stuff, knowing nothing really about what's going on, by just being diligent in labeling every single wire as you go. For the most part, there's still going to be a little bit of guessing and intuitive stuff. But like, you can do it that way, and there's nothing wrong with that, honestly. It takes a lot of time, but you'll definitely get there. You'll definitely get there. Tukadika? I think that's how you say it. I'll send you some shots over the Instagram after the live stream. Nice. Thank you. Show me what you got. Deborah Jones. Deb. Can I call you Deb? Deb J. Deb Jones. Thank you for the $30. I'm hearting that now. Okay. That paid for this guy's dinner. So here, what do we got? Found out the diesel at the gas pumps is a different diesel than the diesel where the big trucks fill up, and my bus doesn't like the diesel from the pumps. That's a new, I got to be honest with you, Deb. I haven't heard that one. Where did you hear that? It's all coming from the same place last I heard. But again, you get into the diesel world, there's this lore, I think instigated by old men. I just have to say, there's some old men who are instigating lore out there about things like how often to start your bus in the winter time to keep the engine good and different diesels and different things. Now, in your my knowledge is not vast. Maybe in your regionally specific petroleum market, there's something funny going on that I don't know about. Very possible, because I've never been everywhere. But that's an interesting story. Maybe some people can comment on that in the chat and help shine some light on the situation. Oh, now we're talking fuel tanks. That must mean I'm like miles from the oh my God. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm sorry, I've gotta just scroll like a frickin' jerk here so I can get the people who've done the super chats, because like frick, they paid. Brenton, $5, thank you. I mean, shoot, hardly feel like I deserve it. I know this probably varies, but do you think most 40-foot buses have a large enough alternator for a big 1500 watt Sterling DC to DC charger? They should have, they could have, they would have, but the best thing to do is just get out there and look, because I've seen this happen all the time. On the resale market at auctions and things like that, buses turn up, and I talk to a lot of people every month who are doing solar systems on their bus, and we talk through the design, and we get to the DC to DC part. And they'll have a bus that should have probably had a 250 amp alternator from the factory, and I'll ask them to just double check before we size their DC to DC charger. And they'll go and look, and it'll be like a 160 or a 120. And just the other day, I had someone on the phone who had a Ford E450 short bus that only had a 100 amp alternator, which is 100 amps is like low just by modern car standards in general, let alone for a bus with like a separate AC system and all of that stuff. And that's because these maintenance departments, alternators aren't going to last 10, 20, 30 years. They're going to get replaced. Maintenance departments oftentimes have a budget, go figure, and they will put in an alternator that'll be a lower output, but that'll work just fine for that application. So while I would say if the bus is new from the factory, it probably did have a nice, solid, high amperage continuous duty alternator on there. Probably doesn't anymore. And so you just got to get out there and look. If you're considering doing, that Sterling charger, and I've done the Sterling thing for a while now, but Victron now has a 12 to 24 volt step-up DC to DC charger that interfaces with the Serbo and their whole network and displays the stuff in the menus. Like, it gives you a much more advanced view and control and programmability, and it's more efficient than the old models of the Victron, and it's less, like, how can I say this? The Sterlings are difficult to program. They're not intuitive, and it's frustrating. And when they stop working, people just say, I don't get it, because there's only 2 buttons, and it's like you got to push and hold, and there's combinations of buttons. There's no user interface. There's no Bluetooth, so you can't easily set it up. And so then that really sucks, and it's kind of a waste of money. So I would say, the Victron units, I would consider just getting like 2 of those instead of 1 of the Sterlings. I think they're around 500 or 600 watts of output each. And if you do that setup, you'll have good integration, more controllability, and it's probably the same price. But check your alternator first, because I suspect it's probably not as big as it should be. Okay, I've got time for 2 more, and then I got to get out of here, guys. Edward, and thank you to everyone who commented who I didn't get a hold of or reply to. I can't be on too long. Edward, just thank you for all the advice. Oh, shoot, that's not a question. Thank you. Thank you. Learning how to receive things, Sometimes we're resistant to it. Never been everywhere. I'm taking that, Charlie, for my non-existent bus bill. Yeah, I mean, okay, that's cool. I'm glad we wrapped it up with some more esoteric, existential, non-questions. Thanks for the super chats. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to be doing my best. I know I've said it before, okay, but like, I want to be here hanging out with y'all, just talking about stuff. And I'm going to try to do it some more and get some more videos out. But thank you for tuning in, and I guess I'll see you when I see you next time, sometime.